They say the gym is a place to rebuild yourself, a place where sweat and determination can transform not just your body, but your confidence, your life, your future. For many, it's a sanctuary, a place of hope, a place where trust is placed into the hands of fitness professionals who promise to guide you toward your goals. But what happens when that trust is shattered? In a quiet neighborhood, at a small but busy gym, one man became the talk of the town. He wasn't just a gym instructor, he was the gym instructor, the one everyone wanted to train with. His charm was undeniable, his confidence magnetic, and his results, well, they spoke for themselves. Women flocked to him, each one with a dream of looking their best for Christmas, a dream of walking into holiday parties with heads held high, a dream of flat tummies, toned curves, and newfound confidence. But what they got was far from what they signed up for. At first it all seemed innocent enough. He offered private sessions, one-on-one advice, and encouragement that felt personal, special. His words were comforting, his smile was reassuring, he made them feel seen. For these women, he wasn't just their trainer, he was their guide, their motivator, their secret weapon for the perfect Christmas body. But beneath that polished exterior, something darker was brewing. One by one the women began to notice something strange. A missed period here, unusual symptoms there. At first they thought it was stress, or maybe a diet issue. It couldn't possibly be anything else, right? After all, they were just there to work out. But soon, the truth became undeniable. One woman, then two, then three, and before long, 6 women, all with the same shocking revelation. The man they trusted to help them achieve their fitness dreams had taken advantage of them in ways they never imagined. 6 women, each carrying the same burden. 6 women with stories that would forever change their lives. This is the story of a gym instructor who turned his position of trust into a weapon of betrayal. A man whose intentions were anything but pure. A Christmas wish for flat tummies became a nightmare none of them could escape. How did this happen? How did one man manage to deceive 6 women, all at the same time? And most importantly, why? This is the shocking true story of betrayal, manipulation, and broken trust. Stay with us, because this story is only just beginning. To truly understand this story, we need to go back to the beginning. Who was this man? How did he gain the trust of so many people? And why was he able to manipulate his position in such a devastating way? His name was Daniel Mensah, a name that, in this community, was synonymous with fitness, transformation, and success. He wasn't just any gym instructor. No, he was the instructor. The one everyone talked about. The one whose name came up in conversations at salons, coffee shops, even on social media. If you wanted results, you went to him. He was well-built, confident, and always seemed to carry himself with a certain charm. His smile was infectious, his demeanor welcoming. He had a way of making people feel comfortable around him, like they could trust him, like he understood their struggles. But Daniel, fitness wasn't just a job, or at least that's what he claimed. He would often tell his clients that it was a calling, a purpose. He'd share stories about his own journey, how he used to struggle with his weight or self-esteem, and how fitness had completely changed his life. Whether or not those stories were true didn't matter. What mattered was how he told them. He had a way of making people believe in him, and it worked. His gym wasn't the biggest in town, but it didn't need to be. People didn't come for the fancy equipment or the state-of-the-art facilities. They came for him. They came because he promised them more than just a workout. He promised results. He promised transformation. Women in particular were drawn to him. He seemed to understand their goals in a way other trainers didn't. He would listen to their insecurities, their struggles with weight, their desire to feel beautiful again, and he'd tell them the same thing. You're not just here to lose weight. You're here to find yourself. For many, those words were like a lifeline. His methods were intense but effective. Clients would leave his sessions exhausted but exhilarated, and if you stuck with him long enough, the results were undeniable. He had a reputation as a miracle worker. Women would walk into his gym feeling defeated and walk out weeks later looking like entirely different people. Feeling stronger, feeling possible. Some even went so far as to call him a genius. Testimonials from clients flooded local social media pages, singing his praises. "He changed my life," one woman wrote. "I've never felt more confident in my own skin." Another said, "He didn't just help me lose weight, he helped me find my happiness again." But not everyone saw him in the same glowing light. There were whispers, small ones at first, easy to ignore. Complaints that, for all his charm, there was something off about him, something that didn't quite add up. Some clients noticed how overly friendly he could be, especially with women. During sessions, he had a habit of standing just a little too close, touching their shoulders or backs under the guise of correcting their form. At first, most dismissed it. After all, he was their trainer, wasn't he? Surely it was just part of the job. But then there were the comments that in hindsight should have raised red flags. "You don't need to lose weight. You already look amazing," he'd say with a wink. Or, "If I were your husband, I wouldn't let you out of my sight." Ringus. Little things, said in passing, subtle enough to be brushed off, but for some, they left a lingering discomfort. And yet, no one spoke up. No one wanted to risk ruining their progress or their relationship with the man who seemed to hold the key to their transformation. It didn't help that he was careful, always careful. He never pushed too far, never did anything overtly inappropriate. At least, not in public. His parents were coveted by people from the States, so the whispers stayed as whispers, drowned out by the overwhelming praise he received. For every uncomfortable comment, there were 10 more glowing reviews. For every subtle red flag, there were countless success stories. And so, the cycle continued. He built a reputation as a man who could do no wrong, a man who could change lives. And for 6 women, he did just that. But not in the way they expected. What they didn't know, what no one could have known, was that behind that charming smile and those reassuring words was a man who was about to betray them in ways they could never have imagined. Every story has 2 sides, the one told by the perpetrator and the ones told by the victims. In this case, the voices of 6 women, 6 lives forever changed, are the heart of this chilling narrative. They came from different walks of life, different backgrounds, different stories. But they all shared one thing in common, a desire to change. For them, the gym wasn't just a place to work out. It was a lifeline, a chance to reclaim something they felt they had lost, whether it was confidence, self-esteem, or simply the joy of looking in the mirror and liking what they saw. Each of these women had their own reasons for stepping through the doors of Daniel Mensah's gym, and each of them believed they were on the path to becoming the best versions of themselves. The conditions of life were too uncertain. Take Sarah, for example, a 32-year-old single mother who hadn't done anything for herself in years. Between raising her 2 kids and working a job that barely paid the bills, Sarah rarely had time to focus on her own needs. But this year, she promised herself things would be different. She wanted to feel beautiful again, strong, confident. And when she heard about Daniel's reputation, she felt like she had finally found the person who could help her. Then there was Linda, a 24-year-old recent college graduate who was desperate to shed the freshman 15 she had gained over the years. She had always been the curvy girl in her friend group, the one who wore oversized sweaters to hide her body during nights out. When Christmas rolled around, She wanted nothing more than to turn heads at her family's holiday party. She wanted to walk into that room and feel like everyone was looking at her for the right reasons. Everyone feared her. She wanted to feel worthy. And then there was Anita. At 40, she had experienced her share of life's ups and downs. A divorce, a career setback, and the creeping insecurity that comes with getting older. She wasn't looking for love, at least not yet, but she was looking for something to remind her that she was still vibrant, still alive. When she walked into Daniel's gym, she felt like she'd found it. For every one of these women, Daniel was more than just a trainer. He was a guide, a motivator, a confidant. He wasn't just helping them lose weight or tone their bodies. He was giving them something deeper. Hope. Voice softened slightly, reflective in tone. He made them feel special, like they mattered, like he was as invested in their success as they were. For women like Sarah, Linda, and Anita, this wasn't just a fitness journey. It was personal. It was emotional. And Daniel seemed to understand that better than anyone. But it wasn't just about the promises he made. It was how he made them. He had a way of connecting with people, of making them feel like they were the only person in the room. He'd listen to their stories. Really listen. He'd nod, offer comforting words, and say exactly what they needed to hear. "You've got this," he'd tell them. "I'll be with you every step of the way." And they believed him. Why wouldn't they? He was the professional, the expert, the man who had helped so many others achieve their goals. For these women, Daniel's gym became more than a place to exercise. It became their safe space, a place where they could let their guard down, be vulnerable, and trust that they were in good hands. But beneath the surface of this seemingly perfect dynamic, there were cracks that no one noticed until it was too late. For Sarah, it started with the late-night messages. At first they seemed innocent enough, just check-ins about her progress or reminders to stay on track with her diet. But then the tone began to shift. The messages became more personal, more suggestive. For Linda, it was the lingering touches during training sessions, the way Daniel would adjust her form, his hands staying on her waist a little longer than they needed to. She felt uncomfortable but dismissed it. After all, he was just helping her, wasn't he? For Anita, it was the compliments, the way he'd tell her she didn't need to lose weight because she was already stunning, the way he'd wink at her and say things like, "You're going to break hearts this Christmas." She told herself it was harmless, flattering even. None of them realized what was happening. None of them could have known that they were all being drawn into the same web. For these women, Daniel Mensah wasn't just their trainer, he was their partner on this journey, the person they trusted with their health, their bodies, their dreams. But that trust was about to shatter. What they thought were small, isolated moments, little things they could brush off and forget about, were actually warning signs of something much bigger, something much darker. 6 women, each with their own story. 6 women, each desperate to feel good about themselves before the holidays. And 6 women who would soon discover that the man they trusted the most had betrayed them in ways they never could have imagined. At first, everything seemed normal. The workouts, the routines, the encouragement. Daniel Mensah had a way of making his clients feel like they were on the brink of greatness, like the dream body they'd always wanted was finally within their reach. And for a while, that's exactly what it felt like. But Daniel had a strategy, a way of working that seemed designed to pull these women closer, to make them dependent on him, not just as a trainer, but as someone they couldn't succeed without. It started with the little things, moments so small, so subtle, that they were easy to miss. At least at first. He offered extra sessions. On the house, he'd say, private consultations, where he promised to focus fully on their needs. He told them that their goals required more than just the standard group classes or quick 30-minute workouts. If you really want results, he'd say, you need to put in the extra effort, and I'm here to help you. For women like Sarah, Linda, and Anita, this sounded like the opportunity of a lifetime, a chance to work one-on-one with the man who seemed to have all the answers. A chance to fast-track their progress and finally achieve the bodies they'd always dreamed of. But these private sessions weren't like the others. In the beginning, they felt professional, focused, intense, and productive. Daniel would push them harder than usual, encouraging them to dig deeper, to give just a little more. He'd cheer them on, saying things like, "You've got this," or "You're stronger than you think." And for a time, it worked. The women felt motivated, empowered, seen. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, the tone began to shift. Daniel started making comments. Little remarks that, at first, seemed harmless. "You're looking really good today," he'd say, his eyes lingering just a little too long. Or, "If you keep this up, you're going to be the hottest woman at that Christmas party." The compliments became more frequent, more personal. During one session, Linda remembered him saying, "You don't even need to lose weight. You're already perfect." She laughed it off, thinking it was just his way of boosting her confidence. But then he added, "If I were your boyfriend, I'd never let you out of my sight." That comment stuck with her, made her feel uneasy. But she didn't say anything. After all, he was just being nice, wasn't he? For Anita, it was the way he touched her during workouts, adjusting her form, placing his hands on her hips or shoulders. At first, it seemed normal. Trainers did that all the time, didn't they? But then she noticed how his hands lingered, how he stood just a little too close, how his voice dropped to a lower tone when he spoke to her. And then there was Sarah. She remembered how Daniel started texting her late at night, asking how her day was or reminding her to stick to her meal plan. At first, she appreciated the attention. It felt like he really cared about her progress. But then the messages became more frequent, more personal. "You're working so hard," he texted one night. "I hope you know how amazing you are." She didn't know how to respond. It felt strange, but at the same time, it was flattering. And that's how he worked, by blurring the lines, by making his clients feel special, by making them question whether his behavior was inappropriate or if they were just imagining things. And then came the escalation. For Sarah, it was during a private session. She was stretching after a particularly grueling workout when Daniel sat down next to her. He complimented her again, told her how proud he was of her progress. And then, almost casually, he placed his hand on her leg. Just for a moment, long enough to make her heart race, but short enough to make her wonder if it was intentional. "Look at me." For Linda, it was the late-night phone calls. Daniel would tell her he wanted to check in on her progress, but the conversations would inevitably turn personal. He'd ask about her relationships, her insecurities, her dreams. He told her she deserved better, that she was too beautiful to settle for anything less than perfect. For Anita, it was the way he started showing up outside of the gym. He'd bump into her at the grocery store or send her flowers after a particularly tough workout. She told herself he was just being thoughtful, but deep down she knew there was something more. One by one, Daniel crossed boundaries that, at first, seemed insignificant. But over time, those small moments, those little slips, added up to something much bigger. Before long, the relationships he built with these women weren't just professional. They were personal, intimate. And for these women who had placed their trust in him, it became harder and harder to say no. He knew exactly what to say, exactly what to do, to make them feel like they needed him. He promised faster results, better progress, and a deeper connection. And for women who were already vulnerable, already searching for something to make them feel whole, it was almost impossible to resist. What started as innocent fitness routines soon turned into personal dynamics that blurred the line between professional and inappropriate. And for these 6 women, the cost of trusting him would change their lives forever. They thought they were in control. They thought they were just working toward their goals. But what they didn't realize was that Daniel wasn't just their trainer. He was their manipulator, their betrayer. And by the time they saw the truth, it was already too late. It started with one. Sarah had been feeling off. She couldn't put her finger on it at first. She chalked it up to stress, or maybe the intensity of her workouts, or the strict meal plan Daniel had given her. But the symptoms didn't go away. The fatigue, the nausea, the strange cravings, none of it made sense. Weeks passed, and deep down she began to suspect something she wasn't ready to face. Finally, she bought a pregnancy test. It was just to rule it out, she told herself, just to confirm that it wasn't possible. But when she saw the 2 pink lines appear in the window, her heart stopped. Her voice softened, reflective. The word echoed in her mind like a thunderclap. Her mind raced. This wasn't part of the plan. This wasn't supposed to happen. She hadn't been in a relationship for months, and yet, here it was, the unmistakable truth staring back at her. At first, Sarah thought it had to be a mistake, but as the reality settled in, so did the questions. How? When? And then, who? Her thoughts turned to Daniel. It seemed impossible, unthinkable even. But her mind kept going back to those private sessions, the moments she'd tried to forget, the things she'd brushed off as harmless or insignificant. And then it hit her. The truth she didn't want to believe. But Sarah wasn't the only one. Linda was next. She'd been feeling bloated for weeks, but she dismissed it as part of her fitness journey. It's just water weight, she told herself. But as time went on, she couldn't ignore the changes in her body. The weight she was gaining didn't make sense, not with the strict diet and intense workouts Daniel had her on. When she finally took a pregnancy test, the positive result left her in stunned silence. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the test in disbelief. Like Sarah, her mind raced back to Daniel. She thought about the long conversations, the touches, the moments she had questioned but never confronted. And slowly, the pieces began to fall into place. But the most shocking part of this story wasn't the individual discoveries. It was how they began to unravel the truth together. It started with a chance conversation. Sarah had confided in a friend at the gym, someone she thought she could trust. She didn't name names, but she hinted at her suspicions about Daniel. Her friend's reaction was immediate and chilling. "You're not the first," the friend said. Sarah's heart sank. She pressed for details, and the friend hesitated before telling her. "I've heard rumors. There are other women. You're not alone." Those words stayed with her. "You're not alone." Sarah knew she had to find out the truth. She began asking questions, cautiously at first, trying not to reveal too much. And soon, the whispers she'd been hearing turned into something undeniable, filling her with desperation and her face threatening. Linda overheard Sarah's questions and stepped forward, hesitant but desperate for answers of her own. She shared her story, and the 2 women realized they weren't just connected by the gym, they were connected by the same betrayal. Then came Anita. Her story was eerily similar. The private sessions, the late-night conversations, the promises of faster results. And now, the same devastating consequence. One by one, the women began to come forward, each with the same story, each with the same sinking realization. Daniel Mensah, this man they had trusted, respected, and looked up to, had taken advantage of them in the worst possible way. The reactions were as varied as the women themselves. For Sarah, it was disbelief. She replayed every moment in her head, searching for clues she might have missed. "How could I have been so blind?" she whispered to herself. For Linda, it was anger, pure, unfiltered rage. "I trusted him," she said. "I gave him my time, my money, my trust, and he did this to me?" Softly. And for Anita, it was heartbreak. She felt used, discarded, and utterly betrayed. "I thought he cared about me," she said through tears, but all he cared about was himself. The gym, once a place of hope and transformation, became a place of whispers and confrontation. The women began to connect, sharing their stories in hushed tones, piecing together the full extent of Daniel's betrayal. The truth was undeniable. 6 women, 6 pregnancies, and 1 man at the center of it all. He must have meant to come there. For these women, the discovery wasn't just about their pregnancies. It was about the realization that the man they had trusted with their bodies, their goals, and their dreams had used that trust for his own gain. He wasn't just a trainer. He was a manipulator, a predator. And now, the truth was out. But the question remained, what would they do next? The truth was out. 6 women, 6 pregnancies, and 1 man at the center of it all. What started as a quiet revelation among a few victims quickly spread like wildfire. Whispers turned into voices, and voices turned into action. The fallout from Daniel Mensa's betrayal was about to unfold, and no one, not even Daniel himself, was prepared for what was coming. The women, now bonded by their shared pain, decided they couldn't stay silent any longer. They began to confront him, one by one. Sarah was the first. She walked into the gym one afternoon, her emotions swirling between anger and devastation. She waited until the gym was quiet, then approached Daniel directly. Her voice trembled as she spoke, but her words were clear. "I trusted you," she said, holding back tears. "How could you do this to me? To all of us?" Sarah was surprised. Daniel's reaction was cold. He denied everything, brushing off her accusations as wild misunderstandings. He claimed she was overreacting, that she must have misinterpreted their interactions. But Sarah wasn't having it. She stood her ground. And soon, other women began to back her up. Linda confronted him next. Her anger was palpable, her voice sharp and cutting. "You lied to me," she shouted. "You manipulated me. You used me." Daniel tried to calm her down, but the damage was already done. The other women followed, each one demanding answers, each one refusing to let him escape accountability. But Daniel remained defiant. He denied everything, even as the evidence against him began to pile up. But the confrontation didn't stop there. The women took their stories beyond the gym. They reached out to local authorities, determined to make their voices heard. Police reports were filed, and an investigation was launched. The gym, once a thriving business, became the center of a scandal that shook the entire community. Clients began demanding answers from the management. How could this have happened? Why didn't anyone step in? Was the gym complicit in Daniel's behavior? The gym's owners, caught off guard by the growing outrage, issued a public statement, distancing themselves from Daniel. "We were unaware of any misconduct by Mr. Mensa," the statement read. "We are cooperating fully with the authorities and take these allegations very seriously." But for many, the damage was already done. The fallout wasn't just legal, it was personal. Daniel's reputation, once untouchable, was in tatters. Former clients began to speak out, sharing their own uncomfortable experiences with him. Social media exploded with reactions, with many expressing shock, anger, and disgust. "How could someone like this get away with it for so long?" one comment read. "This is why we need better oversight in the fitness industry," another person wrote. Women's advocacy groups quickly got involved, using the case as an example of why stricter regulations and accountability are needed in personal training and fitness spaces. They called out the power dynamics that trainers like Daniel exploit, urging gyms and fitness organizations to put stronger safeguards in place. Voice softened slightly, reflective. For the 6 women at the center of this story, the fallout was deeply personal. The betrayal they felt was more than just professional. It was emotional, physical, and life-altering. Each woman faced the daunting challenge of navigating an unexpected pregnancy, all while dealing with the emotional scars left by Daniel's actions. Some chose to speak out publicly, their voices shaking as they told their stories to reporters. "I trusted him," one of them said during an interview. "I never thought he would take advantage of me like this." Others chose to remain anonymous, sharing their experiences through written statements or through friends. Each of their stories painted the same picture: a charismatic trainer who used his position of power to manipulate and exploit the very people who trusted him the most. Daniel, for his part, maintained his innocence. Through his lawyer, he issued a statement denying all allegations. "These claims are baseless and defamatory," the statement read. "Mr. Mensah has always conducted himself professionally and will vigorously fight these accusations." But the court of public opinion had already made its decision. Media coverage was relentless. Headlines splashed across newspapers and websites. "Gym scandal shocks community," "Trainer accused of exploiting clients," and "Women speak out against fitness predator." Television news segments featured interviews with experts discussing the dangers of unchecked authority in professional relationships. For the victims, the public outrage was a double-edged sword. On one hand, it brought attention to their stories and highlighted the need for change. But on the other hand, it forced them to relive their trauma over and over again. A voice grows heavier. As the legal process unfolded, the community watched closely, waiting to see if justice would be served. Would Daniel face the consequences of his actions, or would he find a way to slip through the cracks as so many others had before him? One thing was certain: the fallout from Daniel Mensah's betrayal was far-reaching, affecting not just the victims, but an entire community that had once placed their trust in him. The gym, once a symbol of hope and transformation, now stood as a reminder of the dangers of misplaced trust. And for the 6 women at the heart of this story, the fight for justice was only just beginning. This case is more than just a story about one man's betrayal. It's a chilling reminder of how trust can be weaponized, how those in positions of authority can exploit the very people who look up to them, who rely on them, who believe in them. At its core, this story isn't just about Daniel Mensah. It's about the imbalance of power that exists in so many professional relationships. Whether it's a trainer and their client, a teacher and their student, or even a doctor and their patient, there's always a level of trust that's given. A trust that says, "I believe you have my best interests at heart." And when that trust is broken, the fallout can be devastating. For these 6 women, walking into that gym was an act of hope. They were vulnerable, yes, but not in a way that made them weak. They were vulnerable because they wanted something better for themselves. They wanted to feel strong, confident, and capable again. And they put their faith in someone who promised to help them achieve that. But vulnerability, in the wrong hands, can be a dangerous thing. Daniel didn't just betray these women physically, he betrayed them emotionally. He used their insecurities, their desire for change, for transformation, as a tool to manipulate them. He blurred the lines between professional and personal, making it harder and harder for them to see the truth. And by the time they realized what was happening, the damage had already been done. Stories like this highlight a much larger issue: the lack of accountability in professional spaces. The fitness industry, like so many others, operates on trust. Trainers are given intimate access to their clients' lives, their goals, their struggles, their bodies. But what happens when that access is abused? What happens when there are no safeguards in place to protect the very people who put their trust in these professionals? For far too long, stories like this have been brushed under the rug. People hesitate to speak out, fearing judgment, blame, or even retaliation. And in the silence, predators like Daniel are allowed to continue their behavior unchecked and unchallenged. This case serves as a wake-up call, a reminder that boundaries matter, that accountability matters, that we must do more to protect vulnerable individuals in professional settings. Whether it's implementing stricter regulations, providing better training for professionals, or simply encouraging open dialogue, change is necessary. Moreover, it has the potential to damage trust. The voice grows more resolute. For clients, this story is a reminder to trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it's okay to speak up. It's okay to demand respect and professionalism from those you work with. Your safety, your well-being, should always come first. For trainers and other professionals, this story should serve as a stark warning. With authority comes responsibility. The trust placed in you is not a privilege, it's a duty. A duty to act with integrity, to respect boundaries, and to put the needs of your clients above your own selfish desires. In the end, this case is about more than the actions of one man. It's about the systems that allowed those actions to go unnoticed for so long. It's about the culture of silence that surrounds so many professional spaces. But most importantly, it's about the need for change. Because no one should ever have to pay the price of betrayal for simply placing their trust in someone who was supposed to help them. The story of Daniel Mensah and the 6 women he betrayed is not one that will be easily forgotten. For these women, what started as a simple desire for self-improvement turned into a nightmare that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. They walked into that gym with hope for transformation, hope for confidence, hope for a better version of themselves. But what they left with was something no one should ever have to endure: betrayal, pain, and a sense of trust so deeply shattered it may never fully heal. Their lives were forever changed. Each of them now carries a burden they never asked for, a reminder of what happens when trust is broken in the most unimaginable way. The emotional scars are just as deep as the physical ones, and the road to recovery will be long and difficult. But their story doesn't end with their pain. It doesn't end with their betrayal. Because by speaking out, by coming forward, these 6 women have done something remarkable. They've taken the power back. They've refused to let their voices be silenced, and in doing so, they've shone a light on an issue that so often goes ignored. This case is a reminder, not just to the fitness industry, but to all professional spaces, that trust is sacred, it's fragile, and when it's abused, the consequences are devastating. It's a reminder to all of us to speak up when something feels wrong, to demand accountability, to protect ourselves and others from those who would exploit positions of power for their own gain. And for professionals like Daniel Mensah, it's a stark warning. Authority is not a license for abuse. Trust is not a tool for manipulation. And sooner or later, the truth will come to light. For Sarah, Linda, Anita, and the others, the journey forward will not be easy. They will carry the weight of this betrayal for years to come, but their courage in speaking out has already made a difference. It's opened the door for conversations about boundaries, consent, and the importance of holding those in power accountable for their actions. And maybe, just maybe, their bravery will prevent this from happening to someone else. They wanted flat tummies for Christmas, but instead they became victims of betrayal. This is their story, a cautionary tale of trust, power, and the consequences of manipulation.